Boy buys bouquet of flowers daily. Cashier follows him and breaks down in tears. When a young boy began visiting a flower shop daily, spending his last coins on bouquets of roses, the cashier couldn't help but grow curious about his mysterious purchases. Driven by concern, she finally decided to follow him, and what she discovered would break her heart and uncover a truth far more devastating than she ever imagined. Comment below where you're watching from today, and if you enjoy heartfelt stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. The soft morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Rose's flower shop, casting a warm glow over the vibrant display of blooms. Behind the counter, Emma Larson, a 27-year-old florist, sat perched on a low stool. Her black apron stood in stark contrast to the colorful flowers surrounding her, creating an image of focus and dedication. Emma's hands moved deftly, arranging stems and securing them with ribbon, her mind absorbed in the rhythm of wrapping bouquets. The fragrant scent of fresh flowers filled the quiet shop, creating a serene atmosphere. The chime of the doorbell jingled softly, unnoticed at first, as a boy of about 10 years old hesitantly stepped inside. His clothes were worn and dirty, a striking contrast to the pristine beauty of the shop. Yet, his determined eyes revealed a strength beyond his years as he approached the counter. The boy hesitated before reaching for the service bell, its clear ring finally pulling Emma from her concentration. Startled, she straightened up and brushed a stray strand of hair from her face. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said warmly. "I didn't hear you come in. Welcome to Rose's flower shop. How can I help you today?" The boy shifted nervously, his small hand opening to reveal a handful of coins. "I'd like to buy a bouquet of roses, please," he said quietly, glancing toward a display of red roses nearby. Emma leaned forward to count the change in his palm, realizing it totaled just $10.50. "Those roses are $2.50 each," she explained gently. "With what you have, you can get 4 stems, but it's not quite enough for a full bouquet." The boy's face fell, his disappointment evident. "But yesterday's bouquet," he murmured, his voice tinged with confusion. Emma frowned slightly, her curiosity piqued. "Wait here," she said kindly. "Let me see what I can do." In the back room, Emma found her mother, Rosa, arranging flowers. "Mom," Emma began, her voice tinged with concern, "there's a little boy out front. He's alone, looks like he's been here before, and he doesn't have enough money for a full bouquet. Do you know him?" Rosa paused and smiled knowingly. "Oh yes, he's been coming in for a few days now. I've been selling him the older bouquets at a discount. Let's give him the same today. 10 stems, and make sure they're still good ones." Emma nodded, touched by her mother's compassion. She returned with the roses, wrapping them into a simple but elegant bouquet while the boy watched intently. "That'll be $10, please," Emma said, handing him the bouquet. The boy carefully counted out his coins, passing them to her with a look of relief. "Thank you," he whispered, clutching the bouquet tightly to his chest before hurrying out of the shop. As Emma watched him disappear into the distance, her curiosity deepened. She resolved to uncover the reason behind his daily visits, unaware that what she would discover would change both their lives forever. As if it were a precious treasure, Emma watched him make his way to the door, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine curiosity and concern. The sight of such a young child handling money and making purchases alone tugged at her conscience. She couldn't help but wonder where he was headed and what he planned to do with the flowers. The bell chimed, signaling the boy's departure, and Rosa reappeared from the back room, carrying a crate of flowers. She set it down behind the cashier's table. "Emma, could you help me arrange these?" Rosa asked. "They're for my friend's wedding decorations tomorrow, and we need to finish everything tonight so we can deliver it early in the morning." Emma nodded and moved to assist her mother. They both sat on low stools behind the cashier's desk, arranging the flowers. As they worked, Emma's curiosity got the better of her. "Mom, what do you know about that boy?" she asked, her hands busy with a cluster of lilies. Rosa sighed softly. "I don't know his name, but he's a homeless child. He's been coming to the shop for 3 days now to buy roses. It breaks my heart to see him spending what little money he has on flowers when he should be buying food or other necessities." Emma frowned, her brow furrowing in thought. "Maybe he's buying them to sell on the streets to make more money?" Rosa shook her head. "I thought that too at first, but I've never seen him selling any around the market area. I don't know what he's doing with them." Their conversation was interrupted by the chime of the door as an adult male customer walked in. Emma rose to assist him. While helping the man select flowers, her eyes wandered to the window. She spotted the boy again, this time begging in the market area. Curiously, he wasn't attempting to sell any of the flowers, which contradicted her earlier theory about his intentions. The customer's voice broke through her reverie, and Emma apologized for her distraction. She carried the chosen flowers to the counter and began assembling an intricate bouquet to the man's specifications. When everything was to his satisfaction, she wrapped the flowers and quoted a price of $35, a stark contrast to the discounted price the boy had paid earlier. As the customer paid and left, Emma's gaze drifted back to the window. She watched as an elderly woman approached the boy, spoke to him briefly, and handed him a piece of bread, a small bottle of water, and what appeared to be some money. The woman then walked away, leaving the boy alone once again. Emma felt a mix of relief that someone had shown the boy kindness and growing concern about his overall situation. Turning back to the wedding preparations, her mind swirled with questions about the mysterious young customer. Through the window, Emma saw the boy finish the bottled water in one long gulp and toss the empty plastic into a nearby bin. He took a big bite of the bread before tucking the rest into his pants pocket. To her surprise, the boy turned and headed straight back to the flower shop. The bell chimed as the door opened. Emma greeted him, masking her surprise. "Hello again. Can I help you with something else?" The boy wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and clutched a $20 bill, the gift from the elderly woman. "I want another bouquet," he said, his voice a blend of determination and hesitation, with some premium roses mixed in. Emma's heart sank a little at his request. While his increased budget allowed for a nicer arrangement, she couldn't help but worry about his priorities. Shouldn't he be using this money for food or necessities? "Of course," Emma replied gently. "I'll put together a nice mix for you. Just give me a moment." She stepped into the cool room to fetch some of the less expensive roses, her mind racing with questions. Returning to the counter, she carefully selected 3 premium roses to add to the bouquet. As she began wrapping the flowers, she felt compelled to speak. "You know," Emma started cautiously, kneeling to meet the boy's eye level, "flowers are beautiful, but they don't last forever. Have you thought about saving some of this money, maybe for food or for your family?" The boy's reaction was unexpected. He fell silent, his gaze dropping to the floor. A sadness far too heavy for someone his age clouded his expression. Emma's heart ached. She approached him slowly, her voice soft and caring. "I'm sorry if I sounded rude or scared you. I'm a little worried about you. Do you have a mom or dad, or anyone looking after you?" The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken words. Suddenly, without warning, the boy abandoned the $20 bill on the counter, grabbed the flowers he could carry, and fled the shop. Emma stood frozen, the half-wrapped bouquet still in her hand. Driven by guilt and concern, she rushed to the door. Through the window, she saw the boy running toward the south end of the market. Her heart raced. Something felt terribly wrong, and she couldn't bear the thought of him out there alone, especially after upsetting him. Gathering the abandoned money and the remaining flowers, she made her decision. "Mom," Emma said urgently as she rushed into the back room, "that boy just ran out of the shop. I think I upset him, and I'm worried. I want to follow him and make sure he's okay." Rosa looked up, surprise and concern etched on her face. After a brief pause, she nodded. "Go, but be careful, and don't be too long. We still have work to do." Emma nodded gratefully and turned to leave. "Emma," Rosa called out, "if you're out anyway, could you pick up some lunch for us? We shouldn't waste more time than necessary." With a quick nod, Emma hurried out of the shop, scanning the market for any sign of the boy. Though she had lost sight of him, she remembered which direction he had gone. Crossing the road from the market square, she headed toward the downtown area. Her heart leapt when she spotted rose petals on the walkway. Encouraged, she quickened her pace, following the petals as if they were breadcrumbs leading her way. The trail led her to a homeless encampment, where an old man sat sleeping in a foldable chair. Hesitantly, she approached him and gently woke him. "Excuse me, sir," Emma said apologetically. The man looked at her with annoyance at having his nap disturbed. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for a boy. He's about 10 years old, wearing blue clothes and long pants, carrying a bouquet of flowers. Have you seen him?" The man's irritation faded slightly at Emma's earnest request. He pointed a finger toward a highway bridge in the distance. "Follow the river," he said gruffly. "You won't miss him." Grateful for the information, Emma thanked the man and slipped a bill into his hand before hurrying in the direction he'd indicated. As she followed the river toward the bridge, an uneasy feeling gnawed at her. She couldn't shake the thought that she was about to uncover something far more complicated than she'd initially imagined. When the highway bridge came into view, she scanned the area, searching for any sign of the boy. As she drew closer to the shadows beneath the bridge, she noticed a lone tent tucked away, far from the homeless encampment she'd passed earlier. This spot seemed deserted, except for that single shelter. Her heart pounded as she approached, a mix of anticipation and apprehension flooding her senses. Suddenly, she saw movement near the tent. It was the boy, carefully arranging his bouquet alongside wilted flowers from previous days. The sight of his small, precise actions struck her deeply, a silent dedication to an unknown purpose. Summoning her courage, Emma softly called out, "Hello?" The boy's head snapped up at the sound of her voice, fear flashing in his eyes. Before Emma could say more, he darted into the tent and zipped it shut as if to shield a precious secret. As she drew closer, the area's foul smell grew more pronounced. At first, she thought it was the polluted river nearby, but soon she realized the stench was emanating from inside the tent. "Hey," Emma said gently, her concern evident in her voice. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you or get you in trouble. I just want to make sure you're all right. Do you live here? Is there someone I can call to help you?" Silence. Before she could say more, a man's gruff voice cut through the air. "What the hell are you doing here with my son?" Emma whirled around to see a tall, unkempt man approaching. His eyes were hard, and the aggression in his posture made her instinctively step back. I'm sorry," Emma stammered, struggling to steady her voice. "I work at the flower shop. Your son left some flowers behind, and I just wanted to return them to him." The man let out a harsh laugh, the sound chilling Emma to her core. "You think I'm stupid? Who comes all the way out here to deliver some flowers? This ain't Beverly Hills, sweetheart." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing growl. "A pretty woman like you shouldn't be hanging around here. You never know what kind of trouble might find you." Emma's heart raced as the man's veiled threat became clear. Fighting her fear, she tried to reason with him. "Look, I saw him at the market. He's been coming to my shop for days. I was just worried he didn't have anyone looking out for him. I only wanted to help." The man's expression twisted with anger. "This is none of your business," he spat. "And now that I know where your shop is, maybe I'll pay you a visit." "You wouldn't like that, would you? You've got 1 minute to get out of here before things get ugly." Emma's mind raced. She thought of her mother, the flower shop, and the danger her actions might bring to them both. Reluctantly, she decided to leave. "Okay, I'm going," she said, her voice trembling. She placed the flowers she'd brought near the tent. "I'm leaving these here. I'm sorry for any trouble." As she walked away, she glanced back over her shoulder. What she saw made her heart sink. The man was tearing apart the flowers, shouting at the boy and calling him useless. The boy flinched under his father's rage, confirming Emma's worst fears about his life. Her footsteps grew heavier with each step away from the bridge. Emma's mind churned with thoughts of how to help the boy, knowing she couldn't intervene now but feeling powerless to leave things as they were. By the time she returned to the flower shop, her appetite was gone. Rosa noticed immediately. "Emma, what's wrong? Where's the lunch?" "I couldn't do it, Mom," Emma said, her voice cracking. "Something happened, and I need to tell you about it." Rosa listened intently as Emma recounted everything: the boy, the bridge, and the man. When Emma finished, Rosa reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry you had to go through that." "It must have been terrifying," Rosa said softly. "But we have to think carefully about how to help him. This kind of situation is dangerous." Emma nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know, Mom. But I can't just do nothing." Mix of pride and concern. "Are you sure, sweetheart? You've already done so much today, and I don't want you overworking yourself." Emma smiled reassuringly. "I'm sure, Mom. I'll sleep better knowing we're ahead of schedule. Besides, working with the flowers helps me relax." Rosa placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. "All right, but don't stay too late. Remember to lock the doors and set the alarm before you leave." "I will," Emma promised, giving her mother a quick hug. "Now go home and get some rest." Rosa nodded, giving her daughter one last glance of gratitude before heading out. Emma watched as her mother drove off, then turned back to the shop. The quiet of the evening settled in, broken only by the soft hum of the shop's cooling system and the faint sounds of the market winding down outside. Emma headed to the back room, where the flowers for the wedding awaited her finishing touches. She picked up her tools and began arranging, her hands moving deftly through the petals and stems. Each bouquet she crafted felt like a small work of art, and the thought of these flowers becoming part of someone's special day filled her with a quiet sense of joy. But as she worked, her thoughts kept drifting back to the boy. His scared eyes haunted her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to do something more. What if the men she'd seen earlier weren't just watching? What if they were planning something? Her hands stilled for a moment as an idea formed. Maybe she could reach out to someone in the market who knew more about the boy and his situation. The vendors had a way of knowing everything that went on in the area. If she could gather some information discreetly, perhaps she could find a way to help without putting herself or her mother at risk. With renewed determination, Emma finished the last of the arrangements and carefully stored them in the cool room. She cleaned up her workspace, locked up the shop, and set the alarm as promised. As she stepped outside, the night air was cool and refreshing against her skin. She paused for a moment, looking up at the stars, and made a silent vow. "I'll find a way to help him," she whispered to herself. "No one deserves to feel that kind of fear. Not him, not anyone." With that, Emma headed home, her mind buzzing with plans and possibilities. "Benny," she said softly, her voice filled with understanding. "I know how it feels to lose someone you love. I lost someone too, a long time ago." He hesitated, glancing at her briefly before looking away again. "My dad," Emma continued, her tone steady but laced with sadness. "He died while I was hiding in a tent, just like this." Benny's head snapped up, his wide eyes locking with hers. The raw honesty in her words seemed to chip away at the fear that had gripped him. He swallowed hard, then spoke, his voice trembling but determined. "After that? After my mom was gone, Gary said I had to start bringing in money. He made me beg all day, and if I didn't bring back enough..." Benny's voice broke, trailing off as tears welled in his eyes. Emma gently squeezed his shoulder, grounding him in the moment. "It's okay," she said, taking a deep breath, her chest heavy as she processed everything he had just shared. After a moment, she met his gaze with soft, unwavering eyes. "I'm so sorry about your mom. What you've been through, no one should ever have to endure that, especially not someone as young as you." "Thank you for listening to me," Benny murmured, leaning into Emma's comforting arms. She paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "The flowers you've been buying, were they for your mom?" Benny nodded, a single tear rolling down his cheek. "I wanted the tent to smell nice for her. I thought, maybe if I surrounded her with pretty things, she'd wake up. But she didn't. And now the flowers are all wilted, and it smells so bad in there. Emma felt her own tears welling up. The image of this young boy trying to honor his mother in the only way he knew how was heartbreaking. "Benny," she said, her voice filled with determination, "I promise you, we're going to help. Tomorrow morning, I'll go with you back to the tent. We'll make sure your mom gets a proper burial, okay? She deserves that, and so do you." Benny looked up at her, hope shining in his eyes for the first time. "Really? You'd do that for us?" Emma nodded firmly. "Absolutely. And we'll figure out what to do about Gary too. You don't have to go back to him. We'll find a way to keep you safe." As she spoke, Emma's mind was already racing with plans. She knew they might need to involve the police, but for now, the most important thing was making sure Benny felt safe and cared for. "Now," Emma said gently, noticing Benny's eyelids starting to droop, "why don't you try to get some sleep? You're safe here. We'll figure everything out in the morning." Benny nodded sleepily, settling down on the sofa. Within minutes, he was fast asleep, the exhaustion of the past few days catching up with him. Emma watched him for a moment, her heart heavy with the weight of his story but filled with a fierce determination to help. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was committed to doing whatever it took to give this brave young boy a chance at a better life. Quietly, she returned to the front of the shop to finish the wedding preparations. As she worked, her thoughts were consumed by Benny and the plans she was forming to help him. The peaceful solitude of the night felt different now, charged with purpose. By the time Emma finished the wedding arrangements, she couldn't help but glance often toward the back room where Benny slept. Sadness, anger, and determination swirled inside her as she thought about everything he had endured. Deciding she had done all she could for the night, Emma made her way to the sofa where Benny lay sleeping. Sitting on its edge, she watched his gentle breathing. In sleep, the worry lines on his young face seemed to smooth out, making him look even more vulnerable. As if sensing her presence, Benny stirred, his face scrunching as if caught in a nightmare. Without hesitation, Emma reached out and gently stroked his hair, murmuring soft words of comfort. Slowly, Benny's features relaxed, and he drifted back into peaceful sleep. Hours later, Emma was roused by a sound at the door. She blinked groggily, momentarily disoriented. Glancing at the clock, she saw it was just past 4 a.m., the time her mother was supposed to arrive to help with the delivery. Breathing a sigh of relief, Emma opened the door, ushering Rosa inside. "Good morning, sweetheart," Rosa whispered, setting down bags she was carrying. "I brought breakfast for you and Benny. Looks like he's having a good sleep." Emma nodded, glancing toward the back room. Her satisfaction was brief, though, as urgency washed over her. Less than an hour remained to complete the delivery. Emma and Rosa moved swiftly, gathering the bouquets and arrangements. Their practiced rhythm showed how often they'd worked under pressure. After loading the van, Rosa turned to Emma. "Are you sure you'll be okay here with Benny? I can call someone else to handle the delivery." Emma shook her head, touched by the offer but determined. "We'll be fine, Mom. You go ahead." With a hug, Rosa departed. As Emma turned to head back inside, a rough voice broke the quiet. Well, what do we have here?" Emma froze, her blood running cold as she recognized the two men from the market. Their hard stares and threatening posture made her heart pound. As they approached the door, one of the men growled, "Hand over the boy." Emma's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "I don't know what you're talking about. There's no boy here." The second man sneered and stepped closer. "Don't play dumb, lady. We know he's here, and Gary's not happy about it." Emma's pulse thundered, but she stood her ground. The thought of the nearby police station Rosa had mentioned gave her a glimmer of courage. "Listen," she said, her tone firm now, "I don't know who you think you are, but Gary is not Benny's father. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." The men exchanged a surprised glance, clearly unprepared for her resistance. Emma pressed her advantage. "I've known the officers at the local station for years. This shop's been here longer than you've probably been alive. So unless you want to explain why you're harassing a local business owner, I suggest you leave. Now." For a tense moment, she thought they might force their way in. But then, with a final threatening glare, the men backed off. One spat, "This isn't over. You can't protect the boy forever. He belongs to the street. And when Gary hears about this, he won't be happy. Watch your back, flower lady." As they retreated, Emma quickly locked the door, her hands trembling as she turned the key. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart, and turned to check on Benny in the back room. To her surprise, he was standing in the doorway of the storage area, his face pale with fear. He had clearly overheard everything. "They found me," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Gary's going to be so angry." Emma crossed the room quickly, kneeling in front of Benny and placing her hands gently on his shoulders. "Listen to me, Benny," she said firmly. "You're safe here. Those men can't hurt you, and neither can Gary. We're going to fix this. I promise." Benny's wide, uncertain eyes met hers. "But Gary, he's worse than them. He does really bad things." A chill ran through Emma. She realized there were likely even darker chapters to Benny's story. Pulling him into a comforting hug, she whispered, "I know you're scared. But you're not alone anymore. My mom and I are going to help you, and we'll make sure Gary can't hurt anyone ever again." As she held him close, Emma's mind raced with plans. She knew they had to act quickly, not just for Benny's safety, but for their own. Gary wouldn't give up easily, and Emma realized that by helping Benny, she might have put herself and her mother at risk. Yet as she looked at the frightened boy in her arms, she knew she had made the right choice.